Testing.
So let me start with an easy question. What are your pronouns?
My pronouns are he, him. I think I was always labeled by my gender, and growing up, I didn't really fit in because I'm gay and I was always different. I was always teased for being called a girl in elementary school, middle school. At that time, it didn't feel good. I always felt like I was the only one growing up in a small country, you know.
What country?
Bosnia and Herzegovina. I felt really stuck. I felt like I was worthless. It's just living in fear. You cannot live up to your full potential. I know people who were fighting for gay rights in my hometown. Every time, like, people were being stoned on the street. Like, I know those people. And it's a small community, but I'm definitely aware of what was happening. And I was attacked on the street once. I was with my friends. These hooligans got drunk. We were waiting in front of a store. Somebody came up to me. I literally, like, it was the scariest fucking shit of my life. And you just have to run for your life, you know?
Yeah.
You don't want to engage in that. You against the three guys, and you in that moment everything dies in you and you just go blank and you're just like, okay, this is it, I'm gonna be killed.
How does it affect your life? Has it?
Absolutely, it affected my life. To me, moving to America was just a life-changing experience, and I moved here 3 years ago. I don't know, it just felt normal for me to be that weirdo that I was in Bosnia, but I had to like turn it down a notch just because I don't want to get bullied because I'm gonna literally like kill myself. My own parents didn't really support me. They always thought that anything that I wanted to do was weird. I moved here by myself. My parents are still back in Bosnia. We do talk often, but for me, it's more important to have this chosen family. And I'm lucky enough to have found beautiful people who encourage me and don't make me feel like I'm a weirdo and that I'm doing something wrong. And I can just like express myself in so many different ways without thinking that I'm a failure in life. Moving here opened all the doors for me. Just breathing freely and being able to be myself. I can hold my partner's hand on the street. I can freely kiss somebody on the street. Makes you feel like you can do anything.
My pronouns are she, her, king, queen, and daddy. I enjoy those words, and I think mainly because it holds dominance within society, and I'm a pretty dominant person, although like I embrace like my feminine features as well. For the most part, I'm very dominant. I surround myself with people who just understand and just get that this is just a state of being. I'm just being myself. I'm not trying to be anything other than myself. But there's also the cases where I will be approached as young man or sir. All in all, it doesn't really bother me anymore because I see people just don't understand a lot of things. I feel like society focuses way too much on how a person identifies instead of if this person is actually harming someone. You are doing no harm to anyone if you identify in a specific way. It seems gender is still a huge topic within people's homes, and it just doesn't make sense to me at all. But I guess like I also understand that, being that I am a woman of color and I've been discriminated against since I've came out the womb. For someone to have hate towards another person is something that we need to figure out within ourselves. So I just encourage people to figure out why you feel that way. Take a moment, meditate, go see someone, talk to someone. I think I've cultivated a fan base who understands me and really get me. And not only that, but like growing up, I never like truly had the support of like my family as much as I wanted to. I've grown so much, and I think I'm in a state of mind now where I realize that I'm always going to continue to grow. Because I've gone through things that were super challenging and super hard in life, I just feel like it makes me understand what a person is going through. And it also teaches me still to be patient with myself while I'm being patient with others. Because I identify as a woman, I feel like sometimes I get overshadowed I don't like when people try to box me in because I feel like I'm so great at my craft that it doesn't matter if I'm standing next to a female, if I'm standing next to a male, if I'm standing next to someone non-binary, if I'm standing next to anyone, I can still go toe to toe with that person. That's just how great I am at my craft. On stage, I'm just like, yeah, you know, and this happened, and this happened. But then talking, it's like, can I trust you? There's an issue where like I always have to assert myself, sort of like fight for the respect that I deserve, and especially with me being in a male-dominated genre, which is hip-hop music. There's been times where like I've been in ciphers or like freestyles with males because like this is such a dominant genre of music will like either try to take advantage of me, take the microphone from me, or take something. So like I've learned, especially because of how I grew up, to like assert myself and stand up for myself, and speaking up for myself and living my truth is a big part of my identity, is a big part of myself. It's how I gain my freedom.
My pronouns are they and them. I mean, it's just a label that I think helps people fit you in somewhere in their mind. It's kind of annoying, but yeah. I feel like I'm just a human being, and I don't even really like using all these titles, but if I had to use a title, it would be non-binary, it would be gender neutral, it would be androgynous. I didn't understand it at first. I hated my androgyny because of how girly I looked as a little boy. I didn't like it. You know, you have to love yourself sometime. Non-binary people are very new to a lot of people. They see what they see in the media and they don't see us as regular people. Being on Project Runway as the first non-binary model put me in a spotlight where I had to realize that I touch a lot of people and I'm opening doors for a lot of people too. I never thought I would be a role model. A lot of trans women, they do see me and they say, hey, are you gonna be transitioning? And I always have to like kind of prove myself like, no, this is just who I am. You know, I love having both of my energies. Like I literally love my male and my feminine side so much. There's people in our own communities sometimes that we just have to let them know like we exist too. I actually really do enjoy being non-binary and I feel like I have to prove that a lot, which is kind of crazy. They see someone who's androgynous like me and they just automatically think like this androgyny has to lead to transitioning, and it doesn't always have to be that. I always try to teach people like we didn't understand transness either. It took time for us to understand it. It took time for us to see different roles and stuff like that on TV. It's just the same thing with non-binary people. You know, we're very new to people, so we need that same sort of exposure, which is why I'm always pushing for non-binary exposure any way I can. I really just want to show people like we can be in these spaces if we really push ourselves, you know? I want to see more non-binary people on TV, and that's because it will normalize us because, you know, finally Book and Project Runway really affirmed it for me. I feel like, wow, I wasn't doing all this for nothing. It really gets me emotional because I can't even recall anybody in my life that I could like look up to and actually relate to on TV. So to even think that is like really a lot to me.
My pronouns are he, him, his. Yeah. I grew up in a small town in Argentina, so there were a lot of things that I wanted to do, like play with Barbies. There was a secrecy that everything had to be done with if it was something that wasn't conforming to my gender. So that bothered me because I thought I didn't have enough freedom. I grew up doing a lot of theater, so I think there is a whole world within that always was interesting to me, like all the costumes, how you tell a story with whatever you put on, all these tools that we use to tell a story and to say who we are. I'm interested in exploring those. It probably started with theater makeup. If I played Romeo, I'd put on some foundation and some powder because That's just what everybody did. I did it because they wouldn't buy me Barbies. You know, I love dressing them. I never felt like I wanted to be them. I just felt like they were so pretty and I liked putting pretty things on them. It doesn't matter if you feel very masculine or very feminine or whatever. I think there is a beauty to balance. And just from an energetic point of view, I try to do that. Some people just don't know how to interpret that. So they try to tell me, oh wait, so are you then non-binary? I personally don't think that I need any of those boxes. I was married to a woman before. I was 19 and we fell in love and we got married. It was beautiful. It wasn't any less than my relationship with my husband today. But what if I fell in love with a girl? Like, would I feel a pressure to be with a man because that's how I've been perceived? That's the box that I've been put on. As a kid, I was very much backed into a corner when it came to expressing myself and everything, and I just channeled it all through the characters that I played on stage. I really didn't have anybody to inspire me, but like my grandmother, whenever I went to sleep, she would come into my room and she would whisper things in my ear. I am intelligent, I am this, I am that, like all these beautiful things. And I thought that was so beautiful because she was kind of talking to the subconscious mind that told me, okay, if I say these things to myself, I might be able to make it a reality. Groupthink is very dangerous because then what happens is you have one trans person speaking for the community and a lot of people within the community being like, well, I don't feel that represents me. We're both trans, that's all we have in common. Nourishment needs time. You can't just have a plant that's dying, put water and expect that it's going to come back to life in 2 seconds. It's going to need love and care and energy. We need to heal society from the roots, which are the kids.
I prefer to be addressed as her, she. However, I prefer to use my masculine identity to project myself to the world. I just don't feel as though I have to put on a dress and shoes and makeup to be a woman. When I was growing up, you were either a lesbian or you were gay or bi, and everything else was in between. Where now there are so many spectrums in our community, so many titles, so many labels. It's a blessing and it's also a curse because it's so much more to learn, but it's a blessing because everyone gets to come into their own. So you no longer have to feel as though you just have to be grouped. If I want to walk outside with a boa and stilettos and boxers on, as long as I match, no one should have an issue with what I have on. And I feel like that's one of the things that we get so caught up on. Like, we all just want to be loved. I'm from Hispanic descent, I have a Spanish family, and they're not very supportive of the lifestyle because they don't know. They only know what they see on TV, what they hear in the street. My coming out was so harsh, and it was such a dark time for me that no matter what, I'll never go back to that dark place. I will never allow anyone to dim that light for me. How long, how many decades have we fought to be accepted just to get our slice of the entire pie? Every day I feel as though I'm fighting for something different. I'm on a show called The Circle. It's on Netflix. When the show aired, one woman sent me an email. She was just like, because of you playing the character and living your truth through the character, you opened a conversation in my home with my child that we probably would have never had. It was such an eye-opening moment. It was so many people that were just like, yo, I didn't know until I saw you. So many people identified with who I was. It took me living my life and really bumping my head. It took a bunch of shit for me to finally be able to sit here. It was important for me to get on TV and show that. I think that people tend to want to be categorized so that they can feel like they belong. And when it comes to us as a people and as a community, I feel like we just want to be. It's the fact of being able to live. A lot of us just don't have that freedom.
What are your pronouns?
Pronouns are they, them, theirs.
When I was younger, I was already playing with gender and just didn't have the vocabulary to do so. When I was a girl, or before I should just say before I was trans. I'm not sure. See, even now it's difficult because it's like I don't not identify as a girl. I don't even really know what gender is half the time. Is it the way I look? Is it the way I feel? Is it the way other people tell me I'm not really sure, and maybe that's why I struggle sometimes with answering anything about gender. I don't know. I don't know in terms of like what masculinity and femininity look like. When I was younger, I was a tomboy, but because of comfortability. I just liked wearing boys' clothes and I liked having my hair in a ponytail and it was just the most comfortable. But then, realizing like, oh, the way I dress does then affect the way people treat me or perceive me. But I myself am no different, or I'm not even trying to identify differently. It's just like, this is what feels good on my body at the time. I'm indifferent to when people misgender me unless they know otherwise. I understand based off, the limits that we've put on each other. Of course you would have misgendered me. Like, of course. Like any other binary, it's limiting, right? Like we as human beings, like we categorize things because it makes it easier for us to identify. And I understand to a certain extent where these binaries, not just gender, but anything, right? Right and wrong, good and evil, like they're put into these categories, but we limit ourselves and don't acknowledge the complexity of our existence, of our beings, of our individualism. Why? It's so odd. And I think that's where chosen family can come in, right? Like those are the people that love you for your entirety. You're allowed to just be, and there's no questions about it. I guess I just never think about being myself because this is who I am and no one has to live this life but me. And I'm gonna do whatever I need to do to survive and whatever that looks like. Be honest with yourself. And inherently you allow other people to do the same.
What are your pronouns?
I go by he, him, his. Gender doesn't play a terribly big role for me, except for when people get confused by what I am or who I am, and then I'm confronted with it. Growing up, gender was actually a problem for me because I got mistaken for a girl all the time. I think it's hurtful because I see myself as a man, even though I'm hyper feminine, and so that hurts my feelings. My grandma, she let me play dress up at her house. She let me put on lipstick and put on high heels. And I remember us having to keep it a secret. When it came to dressing up, I was not supported by my family. I remember my father getting so angry that he grit his teeth and yelled at me because I came home with one of my girlfriend's crop tops and I was 16. I remember going to my room and sobbing because I felt like I wasn't allowed to be myself. Even when I moved to New York, I remember struggling a lot, maybe 10 to 5 years ago, because there was such a culture of hypermasculinity within the gay world that was really hurtful to me, and I had a lot of shame around that. I think my parents are evolving, especially having an out gay son, but we've still never had a conversation about it. I've never looked my father in the eye and told him I was gay. He just knows because I speak about being gay or boys around him, but he's never had a conversation about my life with me. I'm okay to be feminine and to be masculine. Do I want to be trans? No. And I'm okay with that because I know that my soul has so many different colors to it. I do feel inside that my soul is a woman, but I like my physical male body and how I perceive to the world as man. I think like a woman, I act like a woman. I'm sweet. I feel like I'm my mom. I feel like I'm an extension of her. I feel like a woman, but I'm a man. And I love being a man. But I do not want to be called they, them. I'm he, him, his. It's easier to me. It feels right. I think I'm triggered when people use the feminine pronoun. It triggers my old trauma. I'm happy with the physical body I was given. My mom, how she outed me. I was 18. It was my first Christmas home. She asked me, "Do you think you'll give me grandchildren?" And so I finally said, "I'm gay." And she asked me if I was mad at her and my father, or if I was mad at God for making me a boy. Just because I'm gay doesn't mean I want to be a woman.
My pronouns are she and her. I do not allow my gender to define who I am. I am simply Garnet Rubio. I am myself, and that's it. I first questioned gender as a binary when I was about 5 years old. I knew I was born in the wrong body, and since then, I've simply sought the higher truth. I found that magic through transitioning. I found that magic through learning more about myself, learning to love myself. Feeling like I was in the wrong body felt dark. I was lost, I was unhappy, I was miserable. I felt that I was living a life that I did not want to live. And it was after I found myself in transitioning that I was able to finally find happiness and learning to love myself. It's extremely hard being trans. It's extremely hard being non-binary. You're fighting every single day to learn to love who you are in the world around you. It feels like I'm fighting to prove something that shouldn't even be a thing. I'm just myself. I don't want to make everything about gender because, to be honest, I'm exhausted and I'm so tired of having to constantly discuss my gender and who I am. This is part of the arts. This is part of creativity. This is what we need to do to fight for our role in society today. I did grow up in Texas, but I grew up with a very pro-LGBTQ plus family. Luckily, I didn't have to endure that struggle growing up, so I am privileged in that sense. It feels great to be around like-minded individuals who appreciate you and are aware of who you are and who you're meant to be. It feels good. We are progressing as a whole, as society, and our acceptance for the LGBTQ plus community has grown immensely, and I'm very, very proud of that progress we've made. I believe that gender and religion is at the core root of everything that is unstable and incorrect with the world and society as we know it across all cultures. I believe if we would just sit down and shut up and just rethink gender, I think that would truly evolve and greatly benefit the entire world as we know it. I never want anyone else to feel the way that I felt when I was growing up. And that is how I have devoted my entire existence. Never, ever stop sailing, because eventually this storm will die down. You're gonna have some rocky cliffs, you're gonna have some ups and downs. That's just what life is. We're all human beings, we're all the main characters of our own existences. And we have to just learn to make this existence in life as pleasurable and happy for other people as we possibly can. Because at the end of the day, we don't want anyone else to feel the way that we felt when we were growing up.
My pronouns are they, them. I feel like I fluctuate opinions, gender. Who I am is just never one person or like one being. The first time I ever really questioned my gender, I was 19 years old, and it was because one of my professors in college asked me what my pronouns were, and that was the first time anybody had ever asked me what my pronouns were. I didn't know that I had the option to express myself this way, and I had the option to like say that I don't fit on this gender binary. In high school, I went through an all-boys Catholic military school. Yeah, it was a rough 4 years because I was bullied a lot in a way that I didn't really know. I was abused a lot, like sexually, in a way that I wasn't aware of. It was a lot of harassment. I felt like I wasn't comfortable expressing myself more feminine around all these boys who were already harassing me for being gay and being out of the closet. And so I would always try to fit in, even if I wasn't showing my true self. Other times when I'm playing with my clothes, I would find ways to make it more feminine. As a drag performer, people think that I'm trying to present as a woman, but I don't even see gender when I'm in drag. I just present as how I want to dress or what I want to wear. The queer community is so ostracized that we're all inclusive, but we're not. I'm also a Black person in the queer community, which means that I suffer a lot of racism. And people think that racism doesn't happen within the queer community, but it is very prevalent. Sometimes the Black community rejects me because I'm queer. Even in this community, everyone separates themselves into categories and will put something against you for that. Then there's that argument that, oh, people are becoming queer because it's a trend, or like people are saying that they're non-binary because it's a trend. I obviously don't think that's true. I just think that people are realizing who they are because of education, because we are finally desocializing ourselves from society. I hope that the queer experience is not a trend. If you know your truth and you know who you are, it's very peaceful, it's very calming, it's very balancing. To know who you are and to be confident in that and to walk throughout the day having a sense of peace.
My pronouns are he, him, and his. I felt so uncomfortable in the gender that I was presenting as. As I started to go through my transition, I started to feel more one with myself, more one with the world. Just being approached and addressed as my true gender, it really plays a huge part of my life. I think it's really what molded me into who I am today. When I was very young, I want to say around like 5 years old, I knew that I wanted to be like my god brothers. I knew that I wanted to do all the things they were doing. I was able to do that. I was raised in a family that was very open-minded, which is why I didn't honestly transition until I was 27 years old. I knew that something wasn't right, but I was very comfortable with who I was because of the people who were around me. I'll be 32 May 6th.
Okay.
So that was almost, like 5 years ago now. I actually became a nurse when I was 20 years old and then realized something's not right. So I thought that it was like a career change I needed. I'm like, I just don't feel right in my body. And my mom's like, you're fine, you're amazing, you're doing all these great things. And then I'm like, no, I feel like there's something missing in my life. I was really ignorant to the whole community of transgender people. And once I started to research it more, I just started to connect so much that I was like crying every day. And that's when I took the step to say, I want to go to therapy. I want to talk to somebody about how I'm feeling. And then I started hormones shortly after that, and my life completely changed. I feel like it was destined, like I'm on my life's path. Going through college, people still identify me as a pretty female, so I had a lot of male attention on me, which I didn't like. I just didn't like how people were like, oh, let me help you with that, and come here, and like everyone thought it was like a little play thing. And then once I started to transition, it was just a shift in how people approach me. And once I gained that confidence and I had that power, I said, you're not gonna call me this anymore. This is what I go by, and pretty much everybody respected it. People are like, you inspire me. Even with my beard, like I didn't do that, it just naturally came. But being able to help people in so many different ways and have them look up to me and being open so that they can see my transition like the guys before me helped me means a lot to me. It makes me a go-getter. It really does. It motivates the hell out of me. I'm black and I'm trans. Companies are using black individuals, trans individuals right now just to put at the forefront of their companies. But the way I look at it is, look, if you want to use me because I'm black and trans, I'm okay with that. Put me in the front and let me bring my people with me. I'm okay with being that token boy right now to get in the door for my people, and I'm okay to put that work in. I'm ready to do that. I always call it mirror talk. That's what I do, and it pumps me up. Block out the noise, stare in the mirror, and that's all that matters.
My pronouns are she, her, hers. I had started transitioning. I didn't have a lot of acceptance. I feel much more confident and affirmed in just who I am as time has gone on. Whereas before I would lead with it, my identity. So, everything I posted was about who I was, like my transness, so to speak. Now it's just kind of like the world just treats me as a woman. And I got hired at a job that actually affirmed me. I was able to really use it as a way to get to know people and to make a name for myself, and then also do internal advocacy. I really helped to shape policy around how we interact with trans employees. It was a safe workspace. So 8 months ago, I had bottom surgery. I actually underestimated how much of an impact it would even have on my day-to-day in terms of my psyche and my confidence. Before transitioning, I was in such a cognitive dissonance of just existing. And then you start transitioning and you're really fighting for people to see you a certain way. Like I didn't go out and exist as Nicole in the world. Those first 8 months, I was still in the closet, even though I was coming out to people. And sure enough, there was a point where I was like, okay, like my hair's long enough. I'm starting to get more comfortable with my fashion choices. I just always want to make clear that my journey is just my journey. It's not anyone else's journey. And it's so important that we highlight the diversity of gender is really more nuanced and complicated than most of us have been taught since a young age. I mean, I was disabled my whole life. So I had that I dealt with, but I was ultimately seen by the society as a cis man, a cis white man. I never acknowledged that privilege until way later. I started to realize I was different. Maybe I wasn't given a fair chance. I mean, I dealt with it in sports. So I grew up an amputee and I played sports throughout most of my childhood, teenage years. People will see me as inspiring. I'm cool with inspiring people, but I want to be on my terms. They weren't supportive at first. They thought I was making a mistake. I just got out of a major relationship. I was engaged actually before. One of the things that came about that was just realizing I was trans. And then I told my family and they're like, wait a minute. I never had any signs. I fit in as a boy very easily. And they thought it was just you just gotta have this major relationship. I think you need to slow down. And I'm like, no. I've had these thoughts my whole life. I just never knew what it was. It took them about a year to come around. But once they did, they became my strongest supporters.
What was that like? How did that feel?
Beautiful. It's a really beautiful way to exist.
My pronouns are they, them, or she, her. My pronouns are not preferred. Gender, in terms of my overall identity, has always been a struggle. I think it's because our general understanding of gender is through such a binary lens. I don't identify with the terms man or woman. I truly exist in the gray space. At school, I always preferred to be with women. I just feel comfortable around women. Some of the worst times in school were going to the men's locker room. I was forced to separate through biological gender, and that was ways that I was addressing the binary, but I didn't know where I fit into that. I think I spent so much time of my younger years trying to fit into categories. I'm currently transitioning. I've made the decision to do a physical transition as of 3 months ago. So this is still very new to me, and I'm currently navigating this second coming out experience. I'm currently going through a lot of stress because it's about the coming out to my parents. I'm from a very conservatively Portuguese family. I'm second generation, so they're very much in their traditional ways. You know, you put it out there and you're like, this is who I am. You don't need to understand it, but I need your support. And if you don't want to give the support, then it's best that we just don't have communication right now. The decision to transition is such a happy one for me. I'm very happy, but my happiness is so fragile. To be in a situation where I could be subjected to opinions that challenge my identity right now, it would just break me. The trans experience is not just for a trans man and trans woman. To transition is so many different things and is so relative to so many people. For me personally, it has been that journey of looking constantly for a place for me to belong. And I think what really helped me was relinquishing the need of belonging. I belong to myself. Nobody else needs to understand. You need to understand. You need to belong to yourself, not to anybody else. Why would I want to stifle everything that makes me beautiful for the comfort of other people? It's as if we live by this unsaid rule book written by this author that nobody literally knows. When you are uninhibited, the magic that you can create, it's endless. Nothing is off limits.